The call came in just after noon. A housekeeper, breathless, shaking, unable to form a full sentence. All she could say was a single phrase, "They're not waking up." When I reached the villa, the air inside was ice cold, as if someone had tried to freeze time itself. The curtains were drawn, the lights were still on, but nothing in that room was alive. The bride lay motionless on the bed, her wedding ring still shining. The groom's body was collapsed near the door, positioned as if he had been trying, desperately, to escape. But what struck me first wasn't the bodies. It was the silence. A silence so heavy you could feel it pressing against your skin.
I worked at that resort for 8 years. I've seen celebrities hide from scandals, politicians hide from their families, and wealthy men hide from their wives. But I've never seen fear like what I saw that day inside Villa 23. Nothing was broken, nothing was stolen, nothing was out of place, except them. The couple who had arrived smiling just days earlier, now frozen in 2 different deaths in 2 different corners of the same room. But here's the part that never made the news. The villa was locked from the inside. No broken windows, no signs of struggle, no getaway route, no intruder caught on camera. The place was sealed like a tomb. Yet 3 sets of footprints were found in the sand outside the villa. Only 2 of them belonged to the Newlyweds.
When I reviewed the autopsy reports, the contradiction was immediate. The bride died first, sometime between 11:30 p.m. and midnight. The groom died hours later, long after she was already gone. 2 different times of death, 2 different causes of death. But the most disturbing detail was found on the bride's wrist, a faint smudge of a fingerprint. Not her husband's, someone else's. A fingerprint belonging to a person who, according to the resort's official logs, was never even on the property.
Whoever entered that villa didn't break in. They walked in using something far more powerful than a weapon, a master key. And when we traced that key, when we checked who had access to it the night the couple died, everything we thought we knew about this case collapsed.
Because the person linked to that key vanished before sunrise, quit his job, left his room untouched, disappeared into the desert with no bags, no vehicle, no goodbye, as if he knew exactly what was coming.
This wasn't a crime of passion. It wasn't a robbery. It wasn't even a planned double homicide. This was something else, something colder, something orchestrated. Because the evidence doesn't point to a killer who panicked. It points to a killer who came with a purpose and left with a secret.
And that secret began long before the couple checked into the resort, long before their honeymoon, long before their wedding day. It began with a stranger, a warning, and a promise the groom made to his new wife, a promise he never had the chance to keep. Because the night before they died, the bride whispered something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. She said, "He found us." If you want to uncover more chilling true crime stories and see justice exposed, subscribe to Crime Vaults as we bring light to the darkest true crime cases and never miss the secrets hidden in plain sight. The story of Liam and Naomi Carter did not begin with their deaths. It began 7 days earlier, when they stepped into the scorching desert heat with matching smiles and brand new wedding rings. They were the kind of couple you'd expect to see on a honeymoon commercial. Hands intertwined, laughter echoing, everything new, everything perfect. But what no one knew, not the staff, not the other guests, not even the local authorities, was that they weren't just celebrating love. They were running from something, from someone. On the morning they arrived at the resort, Naomi looked behind her shoulder 3 times before entering the lobby. Liam kept his hand pressed against the small of her back, urging her forward, whispering something only she could hear. And when the receptionist asked if anyone else would be joining them, both answered too quickly. No, no one. That was the first red flag. The second came later that night. Villa 23 was the most private suite on the property. Its own gate, its own plunge pool, its own security camera. No one stayed there unless they were wealthy or hiding. And Liam had insisted on it. He signed the paperwork with shaky hands, glancing again and again at the glass doors as if expecting someone to walk through them. By the second day, staff noticed the couple never left the villa together. Naomi walked the paths alone in the early morning. Liam wandered the dunes at sunset. And when they crossed paths in public, they always whispered, arguments with outraised voices, fear disguised as affection. But there was one moment, caught on a lobby camera, that changed everything. Naomi had stepped into the hallway leading to their villa. Liam followed seconds later, but between them, a third shadow moved across the wall. No face, no name, no registration, just a shape. The shape of someone who wasn't supposed to be there. On the 4th night, Naomi asked for a different room. She made the request quietly, leaning over the counter, eyes wide, voice trembling. But Liam stopped her before she could finish. He grabbed her hand, smiled at the staff, and said, "My wife is just tired. We're fine in Villa 23. But they weren't fine. Because 3 hours later, Naomi called the front desk. She whispered one word before the call disconnected. "Please?" She never dialed again, and the staff member who took that call never reported it. Why? Because people with money complain about everything, and this resort catered to people with money. What happened next will forever remain one of the most chilling mysteries I've encountered. A power flicker struck the resort at 11:12 p.m. Just a few seconds, a harmless event in a place where sandstorms often disrupted electricity. But when the cameras rebooted, the feed outside Villa 23 went black and stayed black for exactly 13 minutes. When the video returned, Liam was seen stepping outside the villa. He looked disoriented, confused. His shirt was torn. His hands were shaking. He walked out into the open courtyard, then turned toward the door and stepped back inside. That was the last time he was seen alive.
The morning they were found, the villa was locked from the inside. The bride was cold. The groom was cold. But the room was freezing, as if the air conditioning had been turned to its lowest setting all night long. Some killers want to hide sounds. Some want to hide evidence. This one wanted to slow decomposition. Someone wanted time. And whoever they were, they knew exactly what they were doing. I searched every inch of that villa. The towels, the glassware, the handles. Surfaces had been wiped clean, but not perfectly. On the bride's bracelet, faint but present, was a single partial fingerprint. It belonged to no one on staff, no one in the guest logs, no one in the local system. Whoever touched Naomi Carter came from outside. Someone with no digital trail, someone with no identity, someone who shouldn't have been able to enter a locked villa inside a private desert resort, unless they had a master key. The resort kept 5 master keys, all accounted for, all locked in a staff-only safe, except one. A key had been accessed at 10:58 p.m. the night of the murders, signed out by a maintenance worker named Kareem Hale. Kareem was young, quiet, polite, barely spoke to anyone, no criminal history, no signs of trouble. The kind of person you wouldn't notice in a crowded room. But the morning after the couple died, Kareem was gone. He didn't quit. He didn't leave a note. He didn't collect his paycheck. He simply vanished. His room was left untouched. His uniform lay folded. His phone, wallet, and passport, all still there. But the master key was missing. I followed Kareem's footprints into the dunes. They went on for miles. In the heat of the desert, tracks don't last long, but these were fresh, carved deeply into the sand. And then they stopped, as if he had walked straight into the open desert until his legs gave out and the wind erased the rest. But why run alone? Why run without supplies? Why run into a place where survival was impossible? Unless he wasn't running from us. He was running from whoever sent him. Because when we investigated further, we discovered a detail that reframed the entire case. Kareem had been paid, not by the resort, not by a guest, but by an overseas account linked to a man who traveled under multiple names across several Middle Eastern countries, a man who had been in the same city as Naomi Carter just 2 months earlier, a man known for private gatherings, hidden cameras, and women who later claimed they'd been followed, a man Naomi once described to a friend as someone I wish I had never met. Witnesses say she was trembling when she said it.
And then the final piece emerged, the last known conversation Liam had outside their villa. A staff member overheard it. Liam wasn't talking to Naomi. He wasn't talking to staff. He wasn't talking to anyone on the phone. He was whispering into the darkness. "You said you wouldn't come here. You promised me you'd leave her alone." That sentence changed this case forever. The autopsies revealed something even stranger. Naomi died of smothering. No signs of prolonged struggle. Liam died hours later, from blunt force trauma to the skull. Whatever happened to Naomi, she never saw it coming. Whatever happened to Liam, he fought and lost. This wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't a robbery. This was a message that Liam understood before it was too late, because his final moments were spent crawling toward the door, fingers pressed against the floor, dragging himself inch by inch as if trying to escape someone who wasn't even trying to hide, someone who stood there watching him die.
A week after the deaths, a camel herder found something half buried in the dunes, a bag. Inside it were 3 items: Naomi's missing bracelet, Liam's wedding watch, a wine glass wrapped in cloth. The fingerprints on the glass didn't match Kareem, didn't match anyone in the region, didn't match anyone in the database. It belonged to the same person whose print was on Naomi's bracelet. A ghost. A visitor with no record. A man who crossed borders without ever being seen.
Kareem's body was eventually found, collapsed in an abandoned camel shed, dehydrated, weak, but with one final message scratched into the dusty floor with a stone. One word: orders. Not revenge, not jealousy, not love, not hate. Orders. Kareem didn't kill the couple. He was the one forced to watch.
And the man who gave those orders left the country the same morning the bodies were found, disappeared behind private jets, diplomatic titles, and money that erased questions before they were asked. The deaths of Liam and Naomi Carter remain officially unsolved. But the truth sits in the silence of that desert villa, in the fingerprint no one can match,
in the shadow that moved across the wall between them that night. And in Naomi's final whisper, "He found us." In the end, the desert didn't take them. Fear didn't take them. Love didn't take them. A man with power did. A man they tried to escape. A man who, even now, walks freely across borders, leaving no footprints behind. And somewhere, buried deep beneath the sand, lies the secret they died protecting. The secret someone never wanted the world to know. If you want to uncover more chilling true crime stories and see justice exposed, subscribe to Crime Vaults as we bring light to the darkest true crime cases and never miss the secrets hidden in plain sight.